Do you really control your mind, or has it quietly been hijacked without your consent? Think about the first thing you do when you wake up. Before your feet even touch the floor, your hand reaches for your phone. A flick of the thumb, a screen lights up. Notifications, headlines, a trending video, a dopamine drip disguised as connection. You tell yourself it's harmless, just a habit. But hours later, you're still scrolling, still consuming, still running from something you can't quite name. On your commute, it continues: music, podcasts, endless chatter. And the moment you're left alone without noise or stimulation, something strange happens. An ache, a silence you can't sit with. So you reach again for distraction, for relief, for control. But here's the question: if you can't stop, are you really choosing? This isn't just about technology. It's about a culture that has trained us to fear stillness, to mistake stimulation for purpose, and to surrender our sovereignty one small pleasure at a time. And the scariest part, it doesn't feel like slavery, it feels like freedom. We live in a world that constantly tells us we're free. We're free to speak free, to choose free, to live however we want. But beneath the surface of this narrative, there's a quieter, more disturbing truth. Because freedom isn't just about political rights or the absence of visible chains. It's about the ability to choose consciously without being unconsciously driven by forces we no longer recognize. And when we look closely at our daily lives, what we often find is not freedom, but a deeply conditioned routine masked as choice. You wake up and you think you're starting your day. But before your own thoughts can even form, your mind is already hijacked. The glow of a screen greets you like an old friend. Notifications flood your senses. You didn't choose this moment, it chose you. You scroll through curated chaos, diving into a stream of images, videos, opinions, fears, and fantasies. Why? Because silence feels too heavy. Because stillness feels like death in a world addicted to movement. Because we've been trained day after day to associate activity with meaning and stillness with emptiness. But here's the paradox: in our effort to escape discomfort, we become captives of distraction. The more we run from boredom, the more we lose the ability to be present. The more we chase instant gratification, the harder it becomes to access anything real, anything lasting. And yet it's all wrapped in the illusion of choice. No one forces you to scroll. No one commands you to binge a series until 3 a.m. or to numb your anxiety with online shopping, junk food, or another forgettable dopamine hit. So you believe you're free because no one's holding a gun to your head. But the truth is far more dangerous. You're being controlled without coercion. Your behaviors are shaped by systems that understand your brain better than you do. Algorithms predict what you'll watch, when you'll crave, how long you'll stay. And every moment you surrender to these invisible rhythms, you lose a little more agency. Not because someone took it from you, but because you gave it away without realizing it. That's the terrifying brilliance of modern control. It doesn't imprison your body. It occupies your mind. And the scariest prison is the one you never realize you're in, because it feels exactly like freedom. Pleasure is not the enemy. In fact, it's one of the most ancient mechanisms of survival, nature's way of guiding us toward what keeps us alive. Food tastes good, so we eat. Connection feels good, so we bond. Pleasure in its purest form is wisdom written into our biology. But what happens when that wisdom is hijacked? When pleasure is no longer a guide, but a weapon? That's when something sacred turns into something sinister. Imagine a society where no one needs to be punished into obedience, where there are no chains, no cages, no visible authority figures looming over you. Just screens, sugar sound, bites, and endless opportunities to feel good right now. What need is there for force when pleasure is this abundant, this addictive, this expertly engineered? This was Aldous Huxley's vision in Brave New World, a dystopia not built on fear like Orwell's 1984, but on sedation. In Huxley's world, people didn't rebel because they had no reason to. They were endlessly entertained, emotionally pacified, biologically comforted. The state didn't have to silence dissent because people had lost the desire to dissent. They weren't forced to obey. They loved their servitude. And if you take a moment to look around, you may start to see that we're already living in something eerily similar. We're not coerced into compliance. We're numbed into it. Every time we feel lonely, we reach for our phones. Every time boredom creeps in, we tap into another video. Sad, order food. Anxious, binge a show. Stressed, scroll, swipe, escape. The moment discomfort arises, the system offers a solution. Not a cure, but a cover-up. Not healing, but distraction. And that's the genius of it. You think you're making choices, but you're simply responding to conditioning. Each small dose of pleasure acts like a leash, soft and visible, but powerful enough to guide your behavior. You don't need to be locked in a cell when your habits have become your prison. You don't need a guard when your pleasures keep you willingly contained. This isn't about demonizing pleasure. It's about recognizing when pleasure becomes control. When what once gave you life now steals your freedom. Because the most effective form of manipulation doesn't look like oppression, it feels like comfort. We were not born weak. Human beings were forged in hardship deserts, storms, hunger, uncertainty. Our minds evolved to endure, to adapt, to overcome. But something has changed. Today we are no longer asked to wait, no longer required to endure. We live in an age where discomfort is not only avoided, it is considered unacceptable. Where anything that challenges us is quickly numbed, muted, or medicated. This is the era of instant gratification, and it's weakening us from the inside out. Think about it. A single moment of boredom now feels unbearable. A pause in conversation, a delay in a web page, loading a quiet walk without headphones. These once ordinary experiences now feel like voids we must immediately fill. But what happens to a mind that is never asked to wait? What happens to a soul that never sits in stillness? We begin to lose something vital. The ability to tolerate discomfort is not just a mental skill, it is emotional muscle. When we numb every minor pain with a quick fix, we rob ourselves of growth. Struggle, after all, is not the enemy. It is the furnace of transformation. Without it, we become emotionally brittle, easily discouraged, dependent on external stimuli to feel alive. Our resilience fades, our tolerance shrinks, and soon even the smallest challenge feels overwhelming. This is how a system built on pleasure control begins to strip away your strength, not all at once, but slowly and visibly. You are taught that sadness must be soothed, not understood. That silence must be avoided, not embraced. That every form of inner tension must be treated as an error, not an invitation to go deeper. But here's the truth, not everything uncomfortable is harmful. Not every negative emotion is a problem to fix. Sometimes the discomfort you feel is your soul trying to speak. And if you silence it with dopamine distraction or another digital high, you lose the opportunity to hear what really matters. We are not being destroyed by pain. We are being destroyed by our fear of it, by our constant need to escape it. The irony is that in trying to protect ourselves from suffering, we become more fragile, more anxious, more reactive, more easily manipulated. True strength doesn't come from avoiding struggle, it comes from surviving it. And until we remember that we will continue to trade our potential for fleeting comfort and call it progress. Critical thinking was once the mark of a free mind. The ability to pause, reflect, question, and challenge was not just an intellectual skill, it was an act of rebellion against complacency. But in today's world, the ability to think deeply is quietly eroding. Not because people are less intelligent, but because they're less practiced. We are not taught to think, we are conditioned to respond. From the earliest stages of life, society rewards obedience over inquiry. The education system, rather than nurturing curiosity, often becomes a training ground for compliance. Sit still, memorize, repeat. Don't question the test, just pass it. This isn't learning, it's programming. And by the time we graduate into adulthood, most of us have learned not how to think, but how to follow rules without making noise. But the conditioning doesn't stop there. It continues through pop culture, entertainment, advertising, and especially social media. You're shown what to want before you even know you want it. Algorithms feed you content that confirms your biases, rewards your impulses, and shields you from discomfort. The more you conform, the more validation you receive. Likes, shares, hearts, these digital affirmations become currency in a culture that values attention over awareness. And this is how independent thought slowly dies, not in a loud, oppressive act of censorship, but in the soft seduction of endless entertainment. You're too distracted to notice you've stopped asking real questions. You don't wonder where your beliefs came from, why you react the way you do, or who benefits from your silence. And why would you questioning takes effort? Doubt is uncomfortable, And when distraction is always one tap away, who needs to think? But here's the hard truth. A population that no longer thinks critically is a population that's easy to control. You don't need to silence people when they've already silenced themselves. You don't need to burn books when no one's reading. You don't need to suppress freedom of thought when people have forgotten how to think at all. We are not living in a dystopia of brutality. We are living in a dystopia of numbness. And in this world, the most radical act you can commit is not rebellion or protest. It's awakening. It's questioning. It's reclaiming your ability to think beyond the surface and refusing to be silently shaped by a system that profits from your passivity. Once upon a time, solitude was sacred. It was in moments of stillness that the greatest thinkers reflected the deepest souls healed and the truest insights were born. But in the world we live in now, silence feels suffocating. Emptiness is treated like a flaw, and solitude. It's no longer seen as a gift, it's seen as a threat. We've become terrified of our own thoughts. The second we're alone, we reach for a screen. We scroll, swipe, click, consume, desperate to escape the quiet. And why? Because in the quiet, we're confronted by something we can't control ourselves. The questions we've buried, the insecurities we've ignored, the pain we've numbed, all of it begins to surface in stillness. And so we flee into music, memes, videos, games, gossip, noise, anything but presence. But this constant escape comes at a cost. When we no longer make time to sit with our own minds, we begin to forget how to listen to them. Deep thought, the kind that changes lives and shapes identities, requires space. It requires boredom. It requires effort. And yet we've been trained to believe that every idle second is wasted, that if we're not consuming, we're falling behind. But here's the truth. What we've lost in our quest for constant stimulation is our connection to depth. We live in a world flooded with information yet starved of wisdom. We have access to millions of voices, but we no longer hear our own. The ability to be alone with your thoughts has become a rare skill, one that few cultivate and even fewer value. But without it, we drift. We react instead of reflect. We absorb instead of discern. We exist at the surface, disconnected from the quiet clarity that comes only through solitude. This isn't just about being alone. It's about being whole. Because until you can sit in silence and remain intact, your inner life belongs to the noise around you. True thought is forged in stillness. Vision is born in the quiet. And self-awareness, real unshakable self-awareness, emerges only when the noise fades away and you're forced to face what's inside. If you've forgotten how to be alone, it's not your fault. You've been conditioned to fear it. But the good news is this: you can reclaim it. And in doing so, you begin the slow, powerful process of remembering who you are. We live in a time that promises happiness at every turn. But this happiness is carefully designed, mass-produced, and sold to us in prepackaged forms. A scroll through social media, a swipe on a dating app, a sugary drink with a dopamine hit. Every product, every platform, every experience is engineered to give us a quick fix, a fleeting high to cover up what we no longer know how to face pain. But pain has a purpose. Discomfort is not a design flaw. It's a signal, a messenger, a catalyst for growth. When we erase all pain, we also erase the opportunity to evolve. Yet our culture teaches us to run from it at all costs. We're told that sadness means something is wrong, that frustration should be medicated, that anxiety must be numbed. And so we comply not because we are weak, but because the system makes it so easy. In Brave New World, Aldous Huxley imagined a society that had perfected artificial contentment. The people in his dystopia didn't suffer not because their lives were rich with meaning, but because every shadow of discomfort was instantly dissolved by soma, the ultimate pleasure drug. They didn't grow, they didn't question, and they didn't resist because they had no reason to. They were happy, but it wasn't real. It was manufactured, controlled, sterile. Today we don't need soma. We have its modern equivalents, algorithms that anticipate our desires, entertainment that silences our thoughts, and validation loops that reward our conformity. We've been trained to believe that the absence of pain is the same as the presence of joy. But that's a lie. Real joy is forged through struggle. Real confidence comes from surviving hardship. And real fulfillment demands that we feel not just what's pleasant, but what's painful too. Avoiding pain doesn't make us stronger. It makes us fragile. When we treat discomfort like a disease, we rob ourselves of the very process that builds resilience. The more we run, the weaker we become. And in our pursuit of a pain-free existence, we trade our strength for comfort, our truth for sedation, and our freedom for a hollow smile. In a world that constantly urges you to feel good, purpose can feel like a forgotten language. Every ad you see, every platform you scroll, every product you consume whispers the same message. This will make you happy. This will make you feel better. This will make the pain go away. And for a moment, maybe it does. But what happens after the pleasure fades? What fills the space once the screen goes dark? Pleasure is easy. It's immediate. It gives you a spike of dopamine and a brief sense of escape. But that's all it offers: escape. It doesn't build you. It doesn't stretch you. It doesn't require you to become anything more than a consumer. Purpose, on the other hand, asks everything of you. It demands sacrifice, effort, discipline. But it gives you something far greater in return: meaning. And meaning is what the soul truly craves. We often confuse pleasure for happiness because we live in a system designed to keep us consuming, not reflecting. A system that profits from our restlessness, not our resolution. If you felt fulfilled, you wouldn't need more stuff, more noise, more likes, more distractions. But when you lack purpose, you become an easy target for artificial pleasure. You begin chasing highs just to avoid the haunting feeling that something is missing. But what's missing is not more entertainment. It's a deeper reason to be. The moments that truly shape us are rarely pleasurable. They are moments of perseverance, of struggle, of profound self-awareness. Viktor Frankl once said, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how." Purpose gives you that why. It makes the pain worth enduring. It turns suffering into transformation. So ask yourself honestly, are you living for comfort or conviction? Are you filling your days with distractions, or are you building something that will outlast them? Pleasure without purpose is a sedative. It lulls you into a passive existence. But purpose wakes you up. And in a world that wants you asleep, waking up is the most revolutionary act you can commit. Recognizing the trap is only the beginning. Real change begins when awareness turns into action. But escaping the cycle of constant pleasure-seeking in a world designed to keep you addicted is not easy. It's like trying to find silence in a city that never stops screaming. It requires intention, it requires courage, and most of all, it requires discomfort. The first step is what we call strategic deprivation. This doesn't mean rejecting all joy or becoming a monk on a mountaintop. It means consciously choosing to remove the stimuli that have hijacked your brain. Take breaks from social media, limit junk content, step away from the endless scrolling and sensory overload. When you stop feeding the machine, something remarkable happens. Your brain begins to recalibrate. You start noticing small joys again. Your sensitivity returns, and the artificial cravings begin to lose their grip. The second step is to rebuild your tolerance for discomfort. Sit in silence. Feel boredom without reaching for your phone. Let sadness move through you instead of running from it. At first, it will feel unbearable. Your mind will beg for escape. But over time, you'll realize something powerful. Discomfort does not destroy you. It sharpens you. It strengthens your ability to stay present. And that presence is what gives you power. Third, you must question everything. Why do I feel the need to escape? Who benefits from my addiction to pleasure? What would I be doing right now if I weren't stuck in this loop? These questions aren't just philosophical, they're revolutionary. Because the moment you begin to examine your own conditioning is the moment you begin to break free from it. And finally, you must replace pleasure with purpose. Don't just subtract, build. Build routines, relationships, and goals that nourish you. Reconnect with the part of yourself that longs to create, to grow, to serve something greater. Because the only thing stronger than the urge for pleasure is the pull of meaning. Freedom isn't given, it's chosen. One moment, one decision, one courageous act at a time. The moment you begin to wake up, something subtle but powerful shifts. You start seeing through the illusions that once comforted you. The endless pursuit of likes, the artificial pleasure, the carefully curated mass, suddenly they all seem empty. And in that awakening, you feel alive in a way you never did before. But here's what no one tells you when you wake up: the world around you doesn't always celebrate. In fact, it often resists. because your transformation becomes a mirror. Your refusal to conform reflects the fragility of others' routines. Your discipline threatens their distraction. Your search for meaning exposes the void they've spent years trying to ignore. And so they pull away. Or worse, they try to pull you back. Some people will say you've changed, and they won't mean it as a compliment. They'll mock your silence, your boundaries, your choices. They'll ask why you're being so serious, why you're not enjoying life. But what they're really asking is why you're no longer validating the lie they've been living. Because when one person breaks the pattern, it forces everyone else to confront their own. This is the hidden cost of waking up. You become a threat to the illusion. And that illusion has many defenders. Not out of malice, but out of fear. Most people aren't ready to give up comfort for clarity. They're not ready to sit with pain, to challenge conditioning, to walk alone. So when you do, you become a reminder of everything they've avoided. But don't let their discomfort dim your light, because for every person who resists your growth, there will be others silently watching, hoping you make it, hoping you prove it's possible. And maybe, just maybe, your courage will become their permission to begin. Awakening is not the end. It's the beginning of a new life and the shedding of an old one. It will be uncomfortable. It will be lonely at times, but it will be real. And in a world addicted to illusion, truth is the most dangerous and liberating thing of all. Now that the illusion has been exposed, the question becomes impossible to ignore. What will you choose? Will you return to comfort, back to the glow of your screen, the never-ending scroll, the soft, numbing rhythm of pleasure that keeps the mind asleep? Or will you dare to step into discomfort, into presence, into a deeper form of freedom that doesn't sedate but awakens? Because awakening is not a feeling, it's a decision. A decision to stop running from yourself, to stop feeding a system that thrives on your numbness. And that choice, as simple as it sounds, is one of the hardest you'll ever make. Not because the path is unclear, but because it demands something the modern world has taught you to avoid: responsibility for your own mind. When you stop distracting yourself, you begin to see. And when you see, you realize just how much noise you've been living in. Just how many thoughts were never truly yours. How many desires were planted. How many fears were inherited. You see how deeply the culture of consumption has shaped your identity. And that's when the real war begins, not with the world, but within. The easy path will always be waiting. Comfort will always offer itself like a warm blanket, whispering, "Why bother?" But the truth is, comfort without consciousness is just sedation. It's a slow erosion of your will, your clarity, your purpose. And over time, it doesn't just numb you to pain, it numbs you to meaning. You begin to forget what it feels like to be truly alive. But you are not powerless. At any moment, you can choose to reclaim your attention, to ask real questions, to endure silence, to sit with pain, to trade distraction for direction, to stop performing and start becoming. The road is narrow, but it leads somewhere. It leads to strength, to clarity, to integrity. So the choice is yours: comfort or consciousness, pleasure or purpose, numbness or truth. You can remain sedated, endlessly consuming distractions that keep you docile. Or you can awaken, reclaim your mind, and begin to live with intention. No one can make the choice for you. But if you've made it this far, maybe deep down you've already begun. In a culture that rewards speed, distraction, and surface-level gratification, the most radical thing you can do is slow down and listen to your discomfort, to your boredom, to the questions you've buried beneath noise. Real freedom doesn't come from avoiding pain. It comes from facing it with purpose. You don't need to delete all pleasure from your life, but you do need to ask, is this pleasure serving me or enslaving me? The world is engineered to keep you numb and reactive, but you are not a machine. You are a conscious being capable of deep thought, self-awareness, and transformation. Reclaiming your mind is not a one-time decision, it's a daily practice. Limit the distractions. Question your habits. Replace numbing routines with meaningful actions. Because in the end, your life will be shaped not by what you consumed, but by what you created and what you chose to become.